everyone. Welcome to another episode of Relate to You. We are so excited to be with you guys again. And it feels like it's been a while, but we're going to talk about why it feels like it's been a while. If you're curious about why the title is called We Have Big News, it's because our podcast is ending. Yeah, literally. Our podcast is coming to
Or
an
a good thing.
end. Or a good thing, right? We are doing our last season. This is season 5. We're going to be doing just this, and then it'll be ending. And so we are going to talk about why. We're going to talk about all of our, good moments and everything. So first and foremost, Lula, how are you feeling? And what has been your biggest takeaway from being a part of this?
I'm feeling a bit sad. I'm feeling, sad that we can continue. It's a little bit of a regret almost. We started this 2 years ago, and 2 years ago, I feel like you can see it in our videos, in our Hear Me Out videos. We started with a lot of we wanted it to be fun. We didn't think it was gonna turn into something more serious and more, structured. We really thought it was going to be just us just us
for an hour going crazy.
Yeah. Because guys, they were long. Hear Me Out episodes were long. But I do think that there's a need in both of our lives where in other priorities. And unfortunately, it's been harder and harder to get together to record. Mm-hmm. And I think that says a lot about our lives. We're moving forward in many areas of our lives, and I think that is a good thing. Mm-hmm. So, but we'll talk about it later, maybe. For now, I guess my favorite thing about recording or the podcast, I think I got to know you in a different setting, I guess. Yeah. I think people got to know our friendship, and I think that I really like that. I think people got to see that it wasn't just, oh, they were friends.
Superficial?
Yeah. Oh, they were friends because they worked together at some point. No, we truly are friends. Yeah. We truly are friends, and I look forward to recording. There were so many times where I had a bad day or, something was going on and I thought, oh, but I'm going to record. Mm-hmm. So I think that I take away all that. All of that. But, yeah. So what about for you, Kiss? What is it that, first of all, I guess my question is, well, since we're going to talk about it, for you, how did you start noticing, okay, we're probably going to have to end it?
So I think that when we stopped working together, that definitely had a big effect. Not in our relationship or anything, even though we were so terrified that it was. Yes. We were like, what does this mean for not just Relate to You, but, Lula and Kez? I think this year and last especially, I struggled so much with new challenges, both last year and this year, that have really changed me. And I've seen my evolution from the beginning of this podcast to who I am now. And it's a little weird for me to see the person that I was when we first started, working together and recording together, because if you remember, when we first started this, we were very different.
Yes.
And I feel like now we're like a blob of each other, Mm. And yes, we still have our differences, and yes, we have our own characters. But it's interesting how with the intentionality we put into this project, we also grew in our characters.
Right.
And now that I've become a different person, I've explored different things in my personal life, in my marriage, and in my career, but family has really been the big thing this year for me, because of just different things I've gone through this year. Mm-hmm. It's made me want to spend more time with family, which is interesting because it seems like I didn't want to at some point, and it's not that. I think maturity is wanting to spend time with your family, I guess. So I think that that's part of it. I think I want to explore also other areas of creativity, and and like I've mentioned this with Lula in private, of like sometimes I just want to hang out with you, you know, and not that we don't hang out when we're together in the podcast, but obviously we have a mission,
purpose,
a
yeah.
purpose of what we're trying to do. But there are times that I'm like, I just want Lula. Lula's gotten busier. I've gotten busier. And I think I've become a little more selfish with her time. You know, like I just want it to be us, you know, no phones, no anyone, like just you and me. And even though the podcast is still something for us, I think that we're still sharing ourselves, if that
Right.
makes sense,
Yes.
you know?
No, and not just that. I think, because there has been times, guys, where it's just literally we come and record. That's it, and we leave. We don't talk. We don't debrief. We don't do anything. Hi, how are you? Good. Okay, good. Bye. All right, let's record. Do you know the theme? Yes, I know. Okay, let's do it. Do you know the topic? Yes. Okay, fine. Do you have the video? Yes, send it to me. All right, good. Bye. And so I think that there's been time, because people can say, oh, you guys see each other so often. And we do for the podcast. But for a friend, we don't.
Right.
So I think that's what we both agreed on. Like, okay, we're definitely saying bye to the podcast, but we're not saying obviously bye to our friendship.
Yeah.
That's just, we're just going to be more intentional about our friendship and hanging out, and, maybe putting this time to our friendship.
I think what I noticed as we did this, along with a lot of different things, is that Lula and I love to work together. You know, we just like being a part of something and seeing it come to fruition, and
Yeah.
we did that, and we worked hard, and we put the work and the hours and all of that, and this was the result, and all of that. And sometimes, which is interesting, you know, mainly being friends, there isn't a lot of moments like that. Sometimes it's like we're just in each other's space, spending time with each other, and you don't always see the result of that, if that makes sense. Whereas when we work together, you see the clear results.
Yeah.
Even in church, when we did a project or an event, we saw the results of our fruit of our labor, basically. And I think that's why we've always been attracted to, we got to work together,
Yes.
right? We got to do
Yes.
something.
Because it works for us.
It works for us.
We work together very nicely.
Yeah. And so that's part of it. I am sad. But at the same time, I do think that as much as I see it as an end, I don't see it as an end, because I'm like, you never know. Like,
Yeah,
you never know what
we
could
might,
happen.
We might come back for monthly episodes.
Monthly, or
every 2 months, yearly.
Lula gets pregnant and now she's like, let's do a mommy podcast, you know?
I get married, let's do a marriage podcast.
Yeah, like ahora nos creemos que sabemos todo, you know? So
I'll be giving people
Marital
advice 3 months in my marriage.
this
man.
is what I learned, guys.
So it's been a week, and I
Don't
can
do
tell you
this.
this.
So I guess that's why I'm not mourning it per se. Because I do think that, you know, I could see us even doing like a yearly vlog.
I can see
You
that
know,
too, yeah.
I could see us checking in
For those 90 faithful subscribers.
for those true fans that really like to keep up with us for some
Yes.
reason.
But then again, it could happen like it happens with a lot of famous people, that once they're dead, they become more famous.
True.
So it could be that once our podcast is dead, I don't know, we might go up on numbers.
Like
Hit those
Tupac over
100.
here.
Hit those 100
Seriously.
subscribers.
So yeah, so I think that's part of it. I don't see it as mourning, but also because I've seen the evolution of my character, my personality, and our friendship and our relationship, I just know that we're only going to be better with whatever it is that we do together, you know, whether it is just we're hanging out or we come up with a completely different thing. I do see us, you know, still working together and still building and still be
Yes,
good,
yes.
So I have to ask, for you personally, what was probably the hardest thing about being a part of a podcast? Or was it all fun and games, easy
No,
for you?
no, I think, um, I don't want to say censor, but I think being wise about what you say and how you relate to people. Um, I think sometimes it was hard because obviously our intent for every episode was how can we relate to people? Let's bring something that we can relate to others that others can relate to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it was hard to do that. I think sometimes it was easier to say, well, this is my opinion. And I mean, for all of our episodes, we say our opinion,
No
right?
matter
We
what.
voiced our opinions and everything. But sometimes I feel like it was hard to come up with something that was relatable, or to be relatable. And with that, it was hard to be wise about your words, about um, the content itself.
Yeah.
Did we do a very good job? I'm pretty sure we failed at times, but I think that was hard. And then I think what was hard was when we both started getting busier. That transition of realizing that we needed more flexibility.
Yeah.
And because okay, huge disclaimer, guys. Everything's good in our friendship. We love each
We're
other, and we
good.
and we work very, very beautifully together. But we did have a couple instances where it was very hard for me to be flexible in terms of no recording. And I think Kes arrived to that realization of this is gonna end soon quicker than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I had a hard time transitioning to that mindset of this is gonna end soon. So I think in that transition, I had a hard time being flexible. I was like, no, we need to record it. Because was like, I get it, but we don't have time. Like o sea, we're already breaking ourselves in so many parts, in so many different labels, and we're taking hats after hats and putting other hats and everything. We need a break, like tú también, and I feel like in my head, porque yo soy bien así de no, si dimos nuestra palabra, la tenemos que cumplir, and
Yeah.
el compromiso viene primero, and I was very, very close-minded with like commitment, and we said we were gonna do it, we're still gonna do it. Okay, I feel we had a hard time in that of like, I knew we couldn't record, and yet estaba ahí de terca de que we should. And so I think that was hard for me.
Right.
That transition of realizing even I need that break as well. Even
Right.
so there are Thursdays or Saturdays or Sundays where I was like, I want to go to the park with my family, or I want to do this, or I should have done that, or pero no, porque I had a compromiso aquí. And so now I'm like, I also needed the flexibility. And funny enough, it wasn't until it happened to me where I was like, you know what? Yeah, maybe we should be flexible. So everything is good. And I think one of the things why we loved to work together is because we tend to go over things very quickly, or not quickly, but we tend to go over dilemmas like that in a very loving way. So we resolved it, and obviously we both agreed. Okay, this is the beginning of the end.
This is it. This is the beginning of the end. I think for me, the hardest part was very similar to what Lula is saying, but um, I came to I came to a point where it was very hard for me to communicate. It's not fun for me anymore. Um, I I started this with Lula because I thought it was fun and exciting and silly, and a lot of the times it's hard when like I forget people watch us.
Right? Yeah.
And because Lula's in the mix of it more with the people that are do watch us, she hears the commentary. She hears the feedback of like, "Oh, I saw your episode, The other day, I had a conversation with my boss and it came up that she's seen me." And it was a moment, guys. Like she didn't say anything. She just said, "I've watched and I like it. I've seen a few episodes and I thought it was
Oh
great." And
wow.
I wanted to die, because I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm not embarrassed by what we've put out, but at the same time, and this is where my point comes in. Lula heard a lot of the commentary from a lot of different people, which made the podcast different for her. Whereas because she heard the comments and the expectations and the I love this, I don't really like this, there was a sense of more of like, let's do it, let's put more out, let's even try this, right?
People
And
are liking
I
it.
people
Yeah.
are liking it. I didn't have anyone really aside from my mom and my sister Annie that really watched our show, and so it was always fun. It was never like I'm trying to.
There wasn't an expectation.
There was an
Yeah.
expectation for me to meet, because my mom and Annie are always gonna love everything I put out for the most part, and so I guess I never looked and focused on the people factor or the who's looking at me. I know you had more issues with censoring. I was more like, me vale, because there's no one that's coming to me and telling me anything, right? And so I think at some point when we started to get busy, and I was like, it's okay, if we don't record. And I could see that for her. It's like, no, we have an expectation, like we need a follow with. I was like, but as long as it's fun for us, like that's all that matters, right? And there was that disconnect of like, this is my perspective and this is your perspective. But then also, it was also learning to work with one another in a different way, to say, I need a break. Sometimes saying that you need a break is not, it's not always a easy thing to say, because as a person who can probably be insecure, you're also like saying it's too much. And so to the other person that is probably not in the same boat and saying, this doesn't feel too much to me, why is it too much for you? That's where those conversations can get hard and can get like very touchy, because like, you don't think I'm doing enough? I'm doing enough. So I think that there was like a lot of like us learning to have grace with one another, to understand we're both putting in the work. We're both putting in the time. We're both sacrificing. This means more to like both of us, even if one of us wants to do it more often and one wants to do it less often. I think that was also one of the things that was hard for me to like, hey, just because I want a break does not mean that this is not important to me.
Right. Yeah.
Just because it's been getting hard for me, busy wise, does not mean that the podcast does not hold a priority in my head. And so, but with all of that, I think that, again, it goes back to relationship building, because if it wasn't for those conversations, I don't think we would be as solid and as trusting of each other. Because now it's like, okay, if you don't tell me that this is hard, I'm gonna believe that this isn't hard.
Yeah.
And if you tell me you need a break, I'm gonna take that we need a break. Pero si no me dices, I can't
Yo no voy a asumir.
I can't assume what you don't tell me. So communication was
Was
definitely
definitely key. Yeah.
key.
And not just communication, but also getting to the, ¿cómo le dicen? To the detail.
Nitty-gritty?
Yeah, to the nitty gritty, because it was just because there's a thing about communication where sometimes we say things so the other person reads between the lines,
Yes.
and because we want to be careful, we want to be nice, and so sometimes you just have to be kind. You don't you do away with the nice,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to be kind with honesty, and and that's where things happen of like, I wanna break, and I know you don't. So how can we do this? And so to arrive to that point, we had to do a lot of like, so what you're saying is, am I right in
Is
assuming that?
To be clear, I just want to make sure I'm understanding your
Uh-huh,
thought.
And so that taught us a lot of communication. Obviously, it wasn't always, it was trial and error. And I think that's why it built another layer to our friendship, because there were times where, of course, yeah, we hurt each other in that trying to get to that point. But the repair part, I think, was more important than even the process.
Yeah.
The way we repaired it was better than like how we arrived there. So, all in all, guys, we do not want to give you an expectation of what our last season's gonna be,
Right.
but we're going to give it our best. we want to go out with a bang. I think we've been very intentional in letting you all know that this podcast is faith based. So we did series like This Is My Conviction, Dismantle the Meme, and a lot of them were faith based. And even when they were not, we would always try to bring it to our faith and what we believed in.
Yeah.
And so in a way it was Jesus centered, or Jesus Christ centered. So for the final season, don't expect less, expect the same thing.
Yeah.
Which is, I think I think that was another thing that I'm thankful for, that even though we started it with a mindset of like, let's just have fun, we transition into, no, let's bring something of worth.
Yeah.
Let's bring something of that can have some people question, that can have some people argue about it or think about it. And I think I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the fact that it wasn't just, let's just make fun of each other, or let's just
talk about our very
embarrassing moments, which I know you guys loved it. But I'm very proud of our This Is My Conviction series. I'm very proud of our newest series, which was Dismantle the Meme, because we were intentional in those areas. Versus for embarrassing stories, I feel like, those are things that just happen to us. But for This Is My Conviction and Dismantle the Meme, I think we put thought into it, and I'm proud of that. So,
para las personas que nos escuchan en español,
sí, también.
Sabemos que no vamos a traducir todo, pero obviamente estamos hablando que este podcast se está llegando a un punto de terminar, y les agradecemos a todos los que nos han escuchado, nos han dado su tiempo. Han habido personas que me han dicho, es mi rutina, cada lunes
Sí.
lo abro en Spotify y ahí estoy escuchando. Y para mí es algo que a veces no lo pienso, que Lula y yo, nuestras voces somos parte de la vida de alguien.
De alguien, ya. Sí, cierto.
Aunque tú estés de acuerdo con todo lo que digamos o no, pero de que nos incluyes en tu día es algo que tal vez no he apreciado en todo este tiempo, hasta que ahora que lo pienso, like, wow, alguien se está peinando y ahí nos están escuchando, pero estamos muy agradecidas y no estamos diciendo adiós por todo el tiempo. No sabemos dónde Dios nos va a llevar y en qué otros proyectos vamos a ser parte de, pero estamos muy orgullosas de lo que hemos podido hacer en estos 2 años, y yo estoy muy orgullosa que a pesar de todo he podido ganar una amiga como Lula, que hemos pasado por tantas cosas en nuestra vida personal, fuera de la cámara. Hemos tenido momentos donde antes de que hemos grabado estamos llorando porque después de un video aquí en este cuarto hemos estado en nuestras rodillas orando por ella, por mí, juntas. Y yo sé que nuestra amistad va más allá de lo que nosotros hemos puesto en YouTube y Spotify. Entonces, de eso hay un orgullo tremendo en mi vida, que siempre voy a poder mirar a estos videos algún día que tenga mis hijos, y estos videos todavía están ahí. Mira lo que hicimos. Mira a tu tía Lula, lo que está mirando, o lo que está haciendo. Así era,
¿Sí
así.
ves esa señora tan dulce? Así era.
Es ella, Y por eso, pues de eso, pues les agradecemos y esperamos que a ustedes les encante esta última temporada que vamos a poner para nuestros fans, que verdaderamente son nuestros fans. Mándenos un DM si tienes algo que tú tal vez has pensado en todo este tiempo, en todos estos 4 temporadas, ustedes nunca hablaron de esto. Dinos, mándanos un mensaje, y si no, vamos a seguir hablando de lo que nosotros nos dé la gana. Entonces, with that.
Well, muchas gracias a todos. Me voy a despedir en español. Gracias por estar con nosotros la mayoría de los lunes. Les agradecemos desde nuestro corazón todo el apoyo, y espero disfruten esta última temporada y los últimos temas que vamos a platicar, y síganos apoyando. Dios les bendiga. Bye.